these bright colors, nice yellow, and it's time to tone it down just a little bit. Because the last piece is black and white. So I have to tell you a little story. I'm going to tell you about how shadows lost their color. Because I don't know if you know, but long ago, shadows actually came in many, many, many kinds of colors. Some people had green ones or yellow ones, and the shadows were the colors of the thoughts and dreams that people carried in their hearts. Some even came in colors that are forgotten today. And little babies and the smallest children, they had really, really bright colors because they were so very new. But in one village there lived a man with a shadow as black as coal. He never had a kind word for anybody. His face always wore a frown, and when children saw his black shadow approach, they would run away. And this man said to himself one day, he said, "This isn't fair. Why should people avoid me? Why should they run away from me?" So he made up his mind. He made up his mind to change the color of his shadow. No more black, black, black. So he stayed up very late one night, looking up spells in old books, looking up spells, mixing the strange potions. And when the sun rose the next day, he stepped out and he saw that he had succeeded. Instead of his black, black shadow, there was a very pleasant violet one right at his feet. So he walked into the town square, and nobody ran away from him. Some women even smiled at him as he passed by. But the man wasn't satisfied yet. He went home that night again. And again he stayed up all night chanting these spells, mixing even stranger potions, looking up the oldest spells in his books at the very, very, very top shelf, all night. And when the sun came up in the morning, he stepped outside, and again he had succeeded. Instead of the violet shadow, there was now a bright, fiery red at his feet. So he walked into the town again, and some neighbors started to gather around him. And they said, "Wasn't it violet yesterday?" And someone else said, "Are we sure it's still his? He could have stolen it, you know." Well, but the man still wasn't satisfied with just attracting the attention of a few neighbors. So he went home again that night, and again he stayed up all night mixing strange potions, chanting his spells. All the night long until the next morning, he really succeeded. And at his feet was a shadow that was not only beautifully colored, but patterned. There were crimson circles and turquoise swirls. And as you can imagine, he walked into the town square with his head held very high that day. Now that happened to be market day, and there was merchants and farmers from near and far. And imagine his delight when everyone stopped their work and just stared at him when he walked by. Even the sun paused in her path across the sky to bend down and take a look. Everyone's gathered around him, they're pointing at this beautiful shadow. And some people even pulled him aside because they thought to themselves, "Why should I have just one color in my shadow?" They wanted to know his secret. They pulled him aside. They offered to give him great sums of money to learn the secret. Well, by and by, and soon enough, colored shadows started to change into patterned ones, striped ones, swirled ones, beautiful colors. And what happened was everyone started to look down on the ground when they were walking by everyone. They didn't look at their faces. People stopped smiling at each other. They looked down at the ground to see if anybody had a shadow more intricate than their own. They stayed up all night chanting spells and mixing those strange potions to make sure that they had the most beautiful shadow. They changed their own shadows. They changed the shadows of their children. And as they walked out the streets, they also kept a respectful distance because they didn't want anyone to step on their own shadow. And they did look each other in the eye. Now, the sun up above, she saw all that was going on, and she didn't like it one bit. Now, it is the sun that makes the shadows, so she knew that it was up to her to put a stop to all this color competition. So the sun thought and thought about what to do, and she thought day after day. And the day after day, the harder she thought, the hotter she became. And the hotter she became, the sun got very bright, and the brighter her light became. So bright and hot that it started to fade the colors of those shadows. So people are sweating, they're mopping their brows in disbelief, and they look down, and all the colors are fading out of their shadows until they become a very dull gray. And now everybody's shadows look the same. And they realized that they could actually stop avoiding each other on the street. When you have gray and gray together, they just give you another gray. So it was all right to step on someone else's shadow. It was all right if everybody's shadow looked the same, to look up and look into each other's eyes and smile as they did before. So to this day, we have gray shadows, and no amount of potions or chanting spells can make it otherwise. The end.